Welcome into the Vitamin Energy Warchant wrap. Florida State falls tonight to Notre Dame 52-3. A game that was close, Corey, for a little while there. I don't know if people were paying attention early in the game. I think it was what was it? 14-3, 17-3, something like that at the end of the first half, and then things kind of went haywire, which is what happens a lot with this football team. Corey's watching it back home. I'm out here in South Bend, Indiana, and I don't know what I've done to deserve this, and I also don't know what this fan base has done to deserve this, Corey. These last three games now, FSU has lost. I think it's combined 123-28 over these last three games, and this was the worst of the bunch, 52-3. How did it look from your couch, Corey?
It was warm, and I got to flip to other games, Ira. There were actually some fun games. The Oklahoma-Missouri game, crazy, isn't it? You're going to want to go see that when you're done with that. You're done with this. But, it was 14-3, and you were going to hold them to a 52-yard field goal attempt that they were probably going to miss, and somehow you were going to go to the locker room only down 11. Kind of right there in that point spread range where maybe you could cover the spread at least, and then your coach calls a timeout inexplicably. You have 12 men on the field after the timeout, still give up a 20-yard catch, and then give up a touchdown on the next play. And after that, it was just no contest. It was just a matter of what the final score was going to be, and it was one of the worst. Other than the Orange Bowl loss, I would think it would be the biggest loss in Florida State history, or close to it. I think it ties for second biggest loss in Florida State history. I know they lost 49-0 to someone, Miami, way back when. So, man, it was the rock bottom in a season that I never thought I'd see, this was 1974 all over again.
The thing about the debacle there at the end of the first half was, it's interesting because so many people I think are going to harp on that because it was so egregious, and just the other media here talking about it, and you brought it up, and I know you wrote about it in your column, and everybody's mad about it. Shouldn't you be more mad about the fact that this team can't compete? I mean, I'm not excusing it. It's terrible. Mike Norvell's grasping at straws when he does that. It makes no sense. The first time out he called, he was trying to get the ball back before the end of the half. Like they were going to get the ball. I think they completed two passes at that point. Mm-hmm. So even if you got the ball back, what are you going to do with it? And then the other time out, like you said, you end up coming back with 12 men on the field. But, I guess it's just.
Do you think he does it, Ira? Do you think he makes those crazy decisions to kind of overshadow how bad his team is? Like maybe if I put it over here, they'll talk about this and not notice how awful my offense is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. But I also don't, people say, oh, he made decisions like this in the past. He made some aggressive decisions in the past that were questionable. I'll give you that. But to me, the most egregious decisions he has made is in these situations with this team, and then very early on in his tenure when he had a bad team.
Yeah.
And I just don't think he understands that there is a difference between losing 28-3 and 52-3. Yep. He's throwing the ball late in that game, which leads to the pick six. And, I guess maybe if you get a touchdown drive there in the end, in the middle of the fourth quarter, it makes you feel something positive going into the bye week. But instead, you throw a pick six, and it's just more embarrassment. I'm not saying you lay down, but I feel like he doesn't appreciate that 52-3 is worse than 28-3.
Yeah, I think for him, a loss is a loss, and it's just not true. I mean, we've seen a bunch of losses this year. None were like this. And part of me, I don't know. I would never praise him for this, but I kind of respect the fact that he still is he's calling timeouts on 4th and 1. Thinking if they stop Notre Dame here, they'll have a chance to go make it 14-10 before half. And it's like, hey, man.
And he brought up in the press conference because Aslan asked him about it. And he's like, we get the ball to start the second half.
Yeah.
So that's exactly in his mind. He sees this beautiful rainbows and unicorns.
Tapestry. Yeah. Yeah. He sees a beautiful painting. He sees the Sistine Chapel, and all we see is poop on a roof. Because that's the reality. We see the reality. He still thinks he can make it a Sistine Chapel. And obviously, we need to get to the heart, the crux of everything, which is, Ira, as we're recording this, I've checked the score. Air Force has scored 20 points tonight. So Florida State is now officially the lowest scoring offense in the United States at 13.3 points per game. That is, they did it, folks.
Did it, gang.
We did it. 13.3. Air Force is up to like 14.3, 14.4. So, look, man, I don't know when the changes are going to come. As you wrote on Saturday, as I wrote in the column after the game, I touched on it a little. I think they need to come now because 28-6, you can lie to yourself and say we competed. Let's finish out the season. You just got embarrassed again. In this fan base, more than anything, I think this fan base deserves you to take some action because this is unacceptable. We know you're not going anywhere, but by God, the rest of these guys shouldn't be cashing checks. Not all of them should be cashing checks for the rest of the year. They don't deserve to be back on that sideline again. I mean, this is literally, I just said they're averaging 13.3 points per game, man. Jameer Watkins scored 30 tonight for the basketball team. This offense couldn't sniff 30 if you gave them 20 before the game started. So you have to make changes, right? And don't you think, just for the sake of the fan base, announce them now. Don't wait until after the season.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like you said, I wrote a column about it as well on Saturday before the game. And
whose was better? You've read both.
Yours is a little bit different.
No,
it's
not better.
My favorite line in your column, Corey, you had me chuckling in the postgame. It was after the press conference. We're sitting there, and I started chuckling, and everybody asked what it was. It was you pointed out that Notre Dame had 8 sacks, and it's the second most they've ever had. And you said, if you don't in case you guys don't know much about college football, Notre Dame's played football for a while.
Yeah, they played it for a good number of years, this sport, and that was the second most sacks they've ever had in a game.
And
unbelievable.
Yeah, so I guess real quick before we go on to the coaching situation, I do want to talk about the offense a little bit.
Good.
They actually ran the ball pretty well early on. It was the best they've looked running the football. They had that first drive,
yep.
And I think they had, at one point they'd rushed for around 100 yards. I mean, they were running the ball. It was nice to see.
Then what happened?
Well, the 2 problems. One is Brock Glenn was not very accurate when he tried to throw the ball, and nobody was open. I mean, that was the thing. Aslan, during the game, was watching the receivers every play. He wasn't even watching anything else, just the receivers, to see if they were ever open. And after every incomplete pass, he would look at me and say, there was nobody open. So that's fair.
That's issue 1.
That's issue 1. And then when Luke goes in there, I mean, you just know it's going to be a sack every play. I mean, and that's the unfortunate thing is I think he's got to be looking at the pass rush now because, I mean, he's just shell-shocked. I mean, these last couple weeks with him back in there, I think they just got to go with Brock and ride it out with Brock these last couple of games.
Which is too bad, man, because I don't know if Brock is any good. He doesn't – I mean, he just threw 2 interceptions. He threw 1 for a pick 6. As you said, the receivers don't do a good job of getting open for anyone. But he at least functions like a college quarterback can. I don't even know if that's fair.
And I think – but my point is more so that Brock's been through hell and back.
Yeah, well, good point. Yeah.
So Luke, I think you're just doing more damage to Luke at this point.
Yeah. Because it literally is just wait. They're the defensive linemen are in a race to see who can hit the 1 and who can hit the 4. If they can both get there at the same time and send them backwards, he is. I think they've given up 15 sacks the last 2 weeks. He's taken 10 of them. The rushing yardage gets hit significantly. When Kromenhoek said that, I mean, they had 8 sacks for minus 51 yards. But Brock Glenn started out 1 of 10 with an interception on a 4-yard pass on 3rd and 17. There are no good answers because they're surrounded and they're just not. It's coaching malpractice how bad this offense is. It is. And they're not surrounded by good enough people to make them even look average. And so you don't learn anything about them. They are running for their lives. Of course he's seeing the rush. And Malik Benson is wide open for a 60-yard touchdown in the Luke Kromenhoek's first series. Wide open. He runs right by the cornerback. Cornerback's flat-footed. He's even, and then he's leaving. And there's no safety over the top. The safety's gone this way. They showed the behind the quarterback angle. And Kromenhoek just sits there and waits for a sack and wears it. And that's 80% the offensive line, sometimes 100% on that play. You've got to let it go. But I get why he doesn't. He's a young kid that is playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in the country with receivers that aren't very good. So when they do get open, he's not expecting it, and he's just not letting it go. But You're right. That first drive was, I thought, probably the best drive of the season, considering the opponent. And then they did absolutely nothing. Literally, they'd score a point the rest of the way.
So defensively, real
Yeah,
quick.
defensively,
I mean,
had some moments.
It's the same story every week. They hang around. It's not like they're terrible. They'll have some terrible opening drives, which they did again tonight, and they'll have some. They'll give up some big plays, but overall, the defense is like if you had any semblance of an offense, the defense is playing okay enough that you could hang in there. Especially Riley Leonard did not look very sharp tonight, anyway. But as what happens is as the game goes on, it's just the last three games, the Miami game, North Carolina game, and this game, it's all been the same thing. Like the defense hangs around, and then once they realize, oh yeah, this offense is never going to score again, it just completely falls apart.
Which isn't great. We're not excusing that, by the way. You're allowed. We watched Iowa do this for half a decade. They had the worst offense in the country and would win 9 games. You are allowed to get stops, even when your offense is bad. But it is hard, and it wears on you mentally and psychologically, and with confidence. I brought this up on the post-game show. I hopped in with Gene and Tom for a second. It's like Florida got to live that life today. We've been praising how hard Florida's defense has played all year, and they have. They've kept them in a lot of games. But when they knew their third-string quarterback was going to play the whole game, and they saw right away, oh, we have no chance, they laid the flip down. They just laid down. It was 42-0. That defense looked as bad as it's looked all year. And you can say the quarterback shouldn't matter. It shouldn't have any effect on the defense, but that's not real life. And imagine going through 10 games of this. Now, again, I don't care who they bring back on either side of the ball. As far as I'm concerned, they're all on the chopping block. But the offense is by far the bigger issue. Because if the offense was just average, I think this defense would be at least average. And then you've got 6 wins. But as we pointed out, the offense is the worst in the country. It's middle school-esque. And when you haven't, it just you've got you can't, obviously you can't bring it back next year. This group, this band of brothers. I don't think you can bring it back next week. I don't think you can bring it back for the next practice. It's just at some point, why not just get a big brick wall at the 50-yard line of the practice field and slam your head into it over and over and over again? That's what they do in these games, Ira. It's watching the same thing over and over and over. It is not that hard to hit a big play. It's not that hard to go score points. And they're playing Notre Dame's backups, and they make it look impossible. Impossible. And it's, offensive line's probably the biggest problem, but it's one of many problems.
Yeah, so I'm with you, man, 100%. I was not. And the whole point, one of the main points of my column was that I was earlier arguing that you don't need to make changes during the season. I was saying that really up until about the last week. Really, the North Carolina game was when I kind of had an epiphany and said, okay, I'm on board now because, if nothing else, it just sends a message to the players and recruits and your fan base that you're not just – because, after the game, I asked Mike Norvell, so what are you telling the players at this point? You've lost these last 3 games by a combined 100 points. What are you even saying to them? And he said, well, we just got to work. We got to keep working. That's the only answer. That's the only thing I know. We just got to keep working. And it's like, dude, that cannot be the message anymore to this fan base and to the recruits and to the current players. It's not about work anymore. This is broken. Yeah. You have to you need surgery, open heart surgery. This is not like put a Band-Aid on anything. Yeah. And so I know he knows that. And I know he's going to make major changes. He could not know that. He's got eyes. But I am on board now with saying, yeah, man, he needs to do something right away because
we don't think it's going to fix
just sending the message.
Yeah, it's the message sending more than anything. And it also, there is a benefit to it, not just by sending a message. You do start the search earlier.
Well, but you can be searching now anyway.
Sure, but you get your name out there for sure earlier. I do think that matters. I think, like you said, I think it's a bigger message to players and recruits that, okay, he means business. He's not screwing around. And it just lets your fan base know that you don't accept this. You're not going to fire yourself, and you're not going to resign and cost yourself $65 million. But you have to show this fan base you do not accept this. You're not going to lie down and just wear these next 2 weeks. You're not going to wear a 70-point loss to Florida. You're not going to wear a 1-11 or a 2-10 season without at least showing that you're willing to do something. And it's such a unique season, Ira, because you don't normally have a bye week on November 16th, right? The 17th. You don't usually have bye weeks this late in the season, and then you don't follow that up with an FCS team. So it's not like you're doing this right before Florida. You get some time to reset, figure out what your staff will be, even if you're coaching shorthanded, which I guess you would in some capacity. But just, wish them well, whoever it is, wish them well. Thank them for the 13-0 and the 19 straight wins. But let your fans know that, because as Todd Blackledge said, you didn't get to hear it because you were there in the press box. Right at the end of the game, he's like, I feel sorry for Florida State fans. Todd Blackledge is saying that. And he's a college football dude. I know he went to Penn State 45 years ago, but he's a college football guy. And I think Norvell has to think about his constituency. He has embarrassed them to no end over the last 11 games they played. His product has been an abject embarrassment. And he can at least show that he cares enough to start making some really hard choices and having some hard conversations with people he likes and admires, and letting the fan base know that he's serious about fixing this thing.
Last thing I want to say real quick, just about the changes. As we talk about firing assistant coaches or making changes on his staff, that is not an endorsement that we're convinced that Mike Norvell can fix this. I don't know.
What? Yes, we are. He's got this thing. Did you not see that first drive?
I don't know that he can fix it, but right. I do think that because of what you would owe him, $63 million, it makes sense to give him a try. And the last thing I would say is, because people are going to say, no, man, he's broken. It's over. Give it up. They need to move on, whatever it costs. The only thing I would say is, Mike Norvell looks the way he looks right now because he's taken ass kickings for how many straight weeks. His team can't do anything. That's why he looks the way he looks. I believe that's why he's acting the way he acts sometimes on the sideline. If you get a better team, if you get better coaches around you, that can change pretty quickly, is all I would say.
It's just not, but the Gators are keeping Napier, and he's never had a winning season there. He's 0 for 3 when it comes to winning seasons. And I think he's 15-22 overall at Florida, and they're keeping because they don't want to pay his buyout. His buyout's $40 million less than your buyout, and they have more money than you have. So, of course, it's just it's not financially feasible to do it. But yes, neither one of us are convinced because, look, man, I don't think all-time great coaches have 2-10 seasons in year 5. I don't think that's a thing. But they do turn it around. They can turn it around, not turn it around maybe to win a national championship, but at least get you to relevancy again. You can be, as I said on the call-in show with Gene and Tom, you could be as good as SMU. They're about to play for the ACC championship. There's nothing that says you can't bring in a new staff and 50 new players and be as good as SMU next year. That's not asking a lot. You're not going to be as good as Ohio State. We got it. But you can be as good as SMU and challenge for this not great conference title a year from now if you make the right decisions. And you don't have to go spend $100 million to get a brand new coaching staff.
Who is
just
this
what? $15 million, $20 million, right?
Who is this brought to you tonight by, Corey?
Oh man, come on, buddy! Vitamin Energy. Look at this. I got this. I got 2 of them, and I'm wearing my swag, dog. I'm wearing my energy swag. You can't see it. The lighting's not great, but it says energy.
VitaminEnergy.com.
You can see that though, can't you, though, Ira? You can see those bad boys. Sorry.
Hopefully people didn't get that far in this
Made
video.
you look.
Hopefully Aslan will cover that up before we blind everybody. Warchant BOGO is the promo code. You get buy 1, get 1 free. Buy 10, get 10 free. They've got a bunch of different varieties and flavors. It's delicious and it's good for you. No crazy chemicals. It's all just good stuff, and it keeps you awake. It gives you extra energy. VitaminEnergy.com is the website. And I think we're done here, Corey. Maybe by the time we wake up tomorrow, maybe by the time you wake up tomorrow, there'll be maybe some good news. Maybe something will happen on this with this coaching staff.
Well, we don't want to say good news as in we're embracing somebody losing their job. Good news is in new. You're probably right. That's probably you said it the right way.
I mean,
you said it the right way.
They're going to get paid. They're going to get paid. They're going to get other jobs.
Let me get my violin out for the millionaire coaches that just lost their job at Florida State. You're right, Ira. That's my fault. Good news, great news, however you want to frame it.
It's just a new day. This program needs a new day. This is unbelievable what we just watched, what we've been watching for these last 3 weeks.
It's not fair to any of us. 3 weeks, 3 months.
Well, these last 3 weeks have been uniquely
awful. Yeah. So. Hey, but Vitamin Energy, gang. Peace and love.
Talk to you next time.